Hey guys, Isaac Lammer here, back with another election weekly recap following the second week, and this one's huge. We saw the development that people are saying will lose Mark Carney the election take place this week. Also, I'm sharing an anecdote at the end about something that happened to me this weekend, which will leave you knowing how important it is that you do everything in your power to help the Conservatives over the edge so that young Canadians will have an economic future in this country, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Also, make sure you subscribe for my future weekly updates and other videos you won't see in the legacy media. I was invited on CBC Radio Canada again for what will be a weekly interview to recap the happenings in the election. Don't worry about the questions being in French, the subtitles are of course again in English. Jean-Emmanuel Fortier of Radio Canada asked me 4 questions in French live on the air this week. Just like last week's episode, I'll show you each of the questions that were live on TV independently, and then I'll discuss them in further detail afterwards in English. Let me know in the comments if you think I missed covering any huge developments this week, and let me know if there's anything you want me to say on TV on Friday this week. The questions I covered in this interview were about Paul Chiang calling for a Conservative candidate to be handed over to China for a bounty, and Carney not expelling him from the party. Also, an update on Alberta NDP MLA Rod Loyola, the promises we've seen from leaders so far, and what's going on with the polling. Let's hop in to that first question now.
Isaac, qu'est-ce qui a retenu votre attention cette semaine? Il y a beaucoup de choses dans la politique fédérale, dans la campagne. Paul Chiang, vous voulez parler de ce qui s'est passé avec un certain dénommé Paul Chiang là, du camp libéral.
Oui, donc Paul Chiang, c'est vraiment intéressant car je vois dans des cercles conservateurs et tous les Canadiens, il y a des personnes qui pensent que cette situation-là, c'est l'un qui peut perdre Mark Carney l'élection. Donc c'est des nouvelles vraiment énormes parce que pour ceux qui ne savent pas, Paul Chiang, là, il a demandé que le candidat conservateur JT soit livré à la Chine communiste en échange d'une prime. Donc ça, c'est des grandes nouvelles, mais après ça, Mark Carney n'a pas expulsé de son parti. Il a dit, la citation c'est que, de lui, que c'était un moment d'apprentissage. Donc, les personnes ont expecté que Mark Carney lui expulsé, mais ce n'était pas le cas du tout. Et on voit maintenant le message des conservateurs. Il appelle Mark Carney compromisé par la Chine. On a vu déjà des autres controversies avec Carney, spécialement liées à Brookfield. Parce que Brookfield, évidemment, il y avait une banque communiste de Chine, là, ils ont loué 250 millions de dollars. Donc maintenant, un nouvel message que Poilievre prend, c'est que peut-être Carney ne peut pas être avec des Canadiens s'il est compromisé par la Chine. Donc c'est une nouvelle dans l'élection.
Mark Carney qui avait dit, écoutez, c'était inacceptable ces propos-là, mais il ne voulait pas tasser son candidat. Finalement, c'est M. Chiang qui s'est retiré lui-même dans le lendemain là, de toute cette histoire-là.
So, ladies and gentlemen, and mostly ladies I know here just for my good looks, not for the actual news. We're starting off, of course, with a big one here. This is Liberal candidate Paul Chiang calling for Conservative candidate Joe Tay to be handed over to the Chinese communists for a bounty. This is insane. This wasn't some hidden recording. He literally said this at a press conference, believe it or not. In fact, take a quick listen to what he had to say.
The other person that's running most probably is, the Chinese community knows, Joe Tay, Zhang Jing. Right? He is looking for the nomination. The Chinese media knows him. He was in the media business in Hong Kong, and here in Canada, he's a radio host, or I don't know, for Singtel Media or Fairchild, he was a media person. So that's all he did, all his life. But also right now, he is wanted by the Chinese government. And there's a $1 million reward on his head. So they want, if you guys want to pick him up and take him to the Chinese consulate, you make him $1 million. I'm just joking. But there is a arrest warrant out for him from the government of China, and there is a reward for him. But apart from that, I can't say more than that.
Now, you might think that news in itself is big enough, but it gets worse. Carney refused to kick Tay out of the Liberal Party after this. He excused him because he apologized and called it a, quote, teachable moment. Take a listen of what Carney had to say.
Mr. Chiang has long history of service to that community, history of protecting those rights. Mr. Chiang is well aware of these issues, including having family in Hong Kong.
How can he be an effective representative for them when they no longer trust him after he said this? The question, as you know, Mr. Carney, you know that Canada has executed 4 Canadians this year.
China.
You know that there are human rights activists in China in detention right now. How can Mr. Chiang, how can your party keep him as a candidate knowing this context?
Mr. Chiang has apologized for his comments. It's a lapse of judgment. He's apologized for his comments. He's apologized directly to me. He's apologized directly to the individual. He has a long record of service. He's going to continue his candidacy.
Now, Joe Tay, the Conservative candidate, literally had to request RCMP security because he was scared of getting kidnapped. He said, quote, "I want to be clear, no apology is sufficient. Threats like these are the tradecraft of the Chinese Communist Party to interfere in Canada. And they are not just aimed at me. They are intended to send a chilling signal to the entire community in order to force compliance to Beijing's political goals. Suggesting that people collect a bounty from the Chinese Communist Party to deliver a political opponent to the Chinese consulate is disgusting and must never be condoned." I mean, look, this is unbelievable that this happened. Eventually, Chiang actually stepped down on his own accord. I'm guessing he couldn't handle the public backlash. Now the Conservatives are saying Carney is compromised by China and that he can't stand with Canadians. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre said, quote, "Just in November, he went to Beijing and secured a $250 million loan for his company from a state-owned Chinese bank. He's deeply compromised and he will never stand up for Canada against any foreign regime. It is another reason why Mr. Carney must show us all his assets, all the money that his companies owe to foreign hostile regimes." Even Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet spoke out against this. He said, quote, "There are so many things that we don't know about so many candidates that appear to be a problem, but there's so much we don't know about the Liberal leader, which is no better for democracy." Lots of people I've seen online are actually predicting that this is what will lose Carney the election, but we've seen so many controversies from him already, and we're still early in the electoral process as the election date is not until April 28th. Let me know if you guys think it'll actually get worse for Carney, if we could even fathom that. Now let's hop into Rod Loyola. Something crazy happened with him too. Take a listen to the clip first.
Autre candidat ici en Alberta, que ça fait controverse parce qu'on a appris hier soir, Rod Loyola, il n'est plus candidat finalement libéral.
C'est ça. Pour les écouteurs qui ont nous écouté la semaine dernière, on a parlé de Rod Loyola parce qu'il était avec le Alberta NDP, mais il a parti pour courir avec le Parti libéral fédéral. Mais maintenant, il est expulsé de cette parti aussi, malgré les situations qu'il y avait, parce qu'en 2019, il a supporté 2 groupes terroristes, Hamas et Hezbollah. Ceci, c'est une citation de 2009. Des organisations comme le Hezbollah et le Hamas essaient vraiment de défendre leur peuple et cela doit être reconnu. Ce sont des mouvements de libération nationale et non des terroristes. Et on sait que ces 2 groupes-là étaient nommés des groupes terroristes
au Canada.
À 2002. Donc, c'était
en
7 ans après ça.
Tout à fait. Puis le parti lui a montré la porte, certainement. Et là, il dit qu'il va être candidat indépendant. Dans Edmonton Sud-Est, il va affronter Amarjit Sohi.
So obviously you know about Rod Loyola already if you watched last week's episode, but in case you didn't, I'll start with the background to catch you up. This guy completely abandoned his morals by quitting the Alberta NDP to join the federal Liberals despite some crazy quotes we found from him a decade ago. Loyola said in 2014 that Justin Trudeau, quote, only cares about his Liberal Party, not the hardworking Canadians that built this country. But even more alarmingly, he pledged to never join the Liberals. But then, of course, he joined the Liberals anyways. But it gets worse. Loyola also made a few inaccurate claims about Mark Carney, calling him the first, quote, Edmontonian Prime Minister. Carney, of course, was born in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories. He moved to Edmonton at age 6, and his father ran as a Liberal candidate for Edmonton South shortly after the 1980 federal election. The Liberal leader has taken flack online for residing outside of Canada over the past decade and being unclear about whether he had a Canadian residence. Carney has been an Irish citizen since birth and a citizen of the United Kingdom since 2018 when he was the former governor of the Bank of England. Loyola also previously shared a quote from Anne McGrath in 2013, the former president of the Alberta NDP, who said, quote, "We must win as who we are. We must not win as a Liberal Party." Alberta Environment Minister Rebecca Schultz spoke up on this, blasting Loyola for his change of heart. She said, quote, "There is zero difference between the NDP and the Liberal Party of Canada now. Maybe a different color, but same ideological activists, same broken promises." So you guys might think that's pretty bad, but yes, it gets worse. Here's where it gets crazy. So Loyola, despite abandoning all of his morals, as we've seen from these quotes, he got kicked out of the Liberal Party, like I said in the interview. So I won't dive too much into that because I already covered it there, but I mean, can you even believe it? I guess the Liberals consider what he did worse than calling for a federal candidate to be handed over to Communist China for a bounty. Now Loyola is saying he'll run as an independent against Edmonton Mayor Amarjeet Sohi in Edmonton Southeast. Anyways, let's hop into the third question now. Here's the clip.
Beaucoup de promesses sur beaucoup d'enjeux des différents chefs. Est-ce qu'il y a des promesses de chefs, de plateformes qui retiennent votre attention particulièrement?
Oui, comme je vous disais, là, j'ai écouté le CBC, leur programme hier avec les 5 chefs. Donc, ils ont parlé pendant 2 heures. Et maintenant, les conservateurs, encore en fait, ils prennent une nouvelle attaque contre Carney parce qu'il dit « Hey, beaucoup de tes idées, c'est de plagiat de nous, là. » Et même de Trudeau, on a vu la promesse des logements que Carney a faite, c'est vraiment semblable à l'un que Trudeau a fait, parce que l'un de Trudeau, il avait dû construire plus qu'une maison par minute, et même pour Carney, et les personnes ont même fait les calculations, parce que je pense que Carney a alloqué 35 milliards de dollars, et on dit, hey, avec les maisons que tu nous promets, ça serait juste 70 000 par maison, c'est impossible. Nous savons. Oui. Il y avait peut-être des petits villages à Alberta où les maisons sont 70 000, mais...
Peut-être à Guy ou à Girouville, peut-être. Même là, c'est pas facile, une maison à 70 000 $. Elle n'est pas grande, la maison. Là. Il y a des cabanons qui coûtent plus cher que ça, malheureusement.
Yeah, so I don't have much to add to that clip other than one thing I forgot to mention was that, of course, housing starts have consistently decreased under Trudeau, despite his insane promise to break record housing by a long shot, and I expect no different from Carney, especially considering the mathematic impossibility of his promise. As for the 2-hour interview of the 5 leaders on Radio-Canada, it was very, very interesting. I watched the whole 2 hours. Let me know if you want a video on that as well. But now, let's hop into the last question before my anecdote, and the last question was very brief.
Très rapidement, la tendance dans les sondages, on la voit, ça se confirme un peu plus. C'est pas positif pour les conservateurs. Vous, dans vos réseaux, là, la base conservatrice, est-ce que vous remarquez peut-être une certaine inquiétude, un petit stress? Ici, en Alberta, il y en a beaucoup de conservateurs, là.
Oui, on voit premièrement juste un contraste là, avec les sondages et les rassemblements, parce qu'on voit qu'est-ce qui se passe dans les sondages, les libéraux gagnent, mais on voit les rassemblements. Carney avait un petit là, une pub, mais on voit les uns avec M. Poilievre. Il doit toujours chercher des places plus grandes. J'ai noté hier à Oshawa, là, il y avait 6 500 personnes. Je sais, c'est pas beaucoup quand on parle d'une élection nationale, mais comparé à les autres rassemblements de Carney, là, il y a tellement des personnes qui viennent. C'est intéressant, là.
Bien, c'est vrai que c'est intéressant parce que le seul sondage qui compte, puis je le répète sur nos ondes aussi, c'est celui du 28 avril. C'est lors de la journée des élections. Mais il y a quand même une tendance, puis bon, la majorité des sondages qui montrent, ça va pas très bien du côté de la campagne conservatrice. Les libéraux, ça va bien. Mais c'est vrai, Monsieur Poilievre, il réussit à remplir des salles, puis ça, c'est pas nouveau depuis longtemps. Depuis qu'il est chef, il remplit pas mal de salles.
Yeah, so for that last question, I don't actually have that much else to say either, other than the fact that I'm, of course, going to the rally on Edmonton, and people are saying it might be the biggest yet. In fact, just on Sunday, they had to change the location because it was originally the Expo Center, which can fit like easy 10,000 people, but that wasn't enough. So they changed it to some building in Nisku, which has a square footage of 365,000. I mean, this is insane. I can't believe how many people are going to be there. I'll definitely make something on that, at least as secondary footage in an upcoming video. So make sure you subscribe to see that. Now, what you've all been waiting for, the anecdote I was talking about, and I mean... This one really shook me to my core, I'm not going to lie. So I went out with my friend this week, and I walked her back to her car after we were done eating. Then, as I'm walking back to my own car, just a few blocks away, I passed by the outside of this bar, and there was a couple people smoking. So I went up to them to bum a cigarette, because, I mean, I'm sure you understand people, it's really tough out here. Anyways, then the guy who was there said he knew who I was, and I was like, what? I've never seen you in my life. And he was like, yeah, man, we went to high school together. My name is X. But I still had no clue who he was. Anyways, we were just hanging out, smoking and whatnot, and he was pretty drunk, or worse, in his defense. But to put it nicely, he was about as average of a Canadian as you could be, if not under the median. Then this just under 30-year-old man who works in the trades shows me his elbow. He shows me his elbow, and it says elbows up. Yeah, elbows up, tatted right there. And then he's like, "Are you with the movement?" I mean, I was so shocked I could barely utter the words. How could someone like this be so disillusioned? A trades worker in Alberta, 30-year-old man. I couldn't believe it. And I was pretty mad, so I tried not to get into it with him too much, but I'm guessing he couldn't even name one of Carney's policies because, of course, nobody really can. After all, the Conservatives have been saying that, quote, a resume is not a plan. In fact, I need a second to cool down.
So what is his plan? A resume is not a plan. Nor is continuing with the same policies that got us into this mess in the first place. In fact, he wants to put the Liberal policies on steroids.
So yeah, all of Carney's policies, the very few we know anything about, are actually plagiarized from either Pierre Poilievre or even Justin Trudeau. So I guess it should come as no surprise that he was accused of plagiarizing his thesis at Oxford. But anyways, I don't know about you guys, but definitely in times of uncertainty, I often ask for signs, and I had recently asked when this happened, and something in my head clicked. And just on the drive home, I was thinking about my YouTube so much, and I knew I really needed to commit to making these kinds of videos, because even if I could help one person, I could really make a difference that might be a notable difference for the future of our country. Because let's remember, guys, Donald Trump did not make Canada's economy weak, fragile, and entirely dependent on the United States. The Liberals did. Trump did not make it impossible for young Canadians to buy a house and get ahead. The Liberals did. And the list goes on. Look, I could sit here doing this for hours, but instead, I'll wrap up this video. Again, I hope you'll subscribe and join me on this journey, and I'll be back with another recap next week. Thank you very much for listening, and God bless.